Hi, it's Becky, and I'm going to go ahead and do my reflection for the student teaching field practicum. Um, it was quite a process trying to get this unit done. I call it unit because it's part of a bigger unit, but it's still 5 lessons all on one topic, so I think that still qualifies as a unit. This one's specifically on bacteria, so it was a lot of fun. It was a great concept, and I got great ideas from the internet. There's a lot of great resources, and it was neat to build experience with that. I tried with my lesson plans to go through and make sure that they were engaging. A lot of our books talk about engagement, really get the students interested. A lot of the stuff they tell us is to incorporate technology, incorporate hands-on, and I really tried to keep that in mind while I was putting these lessons together. I also wanted to give plenty of time to work together, to reinforce concepts, to have the students learn from each other and not just have it a teacher directed study. Although honestly, in the I think it's the third day, maybe third day, I'm not sure. I'll go through these, but I did have to do some direct teaching, and I think unfortunately there's just some things you can't get away from doing that, just because the complexity of the topic. Letting students just discover on their own can lead to some misunderstandings and some assumptions that maybe could be disastrous, basically, to the lab that we were planning on doing. So this whole lesson plan, the whole unit that I put together, was really building towards a lab where the students got to make their own yogurt. So it was talking about the beneficial bacteria. So the first one I did was beneficial bacteria, and we had a lot of different things to do. And I remember Dr. Anders really, really being on the point that our objectives, we need to make sure that at the end of each lesson we've actually met the objectives. So there needs to be a point in the lesson where you can say, here's where the students met the objective. Here's where they've done it. This is where they understand it. This is where they've learned it. This is where they demonstrate that understanding. So I try to go through each of my lessons and find that point to make sure that they could go through and understand them. So this first one is beneficial bacteria. This is where we're going to introduce the topic. I would just want them at the end of this lesson to identify beneficial uses of bacteria, specifically in food production via the fermentation process. Because we're going to be doing a fermentation lab where they created their own yogurt, it was important that they understand that this is a specific subset of bacteria. And so we did a couple different types of activities. We accessed their previous knowledge. They do have information on bacteria at this point in the units, or in their coursework of the year. I wanted them to look at what they know. I had them watch a video, which was short. We read some text on the internet. We went over vocabulary. There's a group discussion. Then there's a group investigation where they do some internet research. Then they are going to present the material that they learned from their internet research to each other and exchange it and write it down. So they're learning from each other. And then as an alternative assessment, we did a poster drawing on the beneficial bacteria. So the first things they are doing is that we have a warm-up activity, and we'll basically ask them what they know. I want to know what they know, and then I want them to share what they know, what they have, what information they have about the bacteria. Then we watch a bacteria video, and it's the Amoeba Sisters, which is actually a pretty popular YouTube channel, but it's neat because even though it's simplified, it's not dumbed down. It still has great information. And then we cover really quickly what the views have changed on the bacteria and why. So it's not just a yes or no, but let's discover why. What have we changed? Then we moved into the through. So first, before we get into the actual practice of it, I want to make sure that we understand the vocabulary that we're going to be using. So we've got this article, and it's called "The Bugs Within Us." And it's a special science news for students, so it's actually geared towards students, written at their level, but using scientific terms. And because there are scientific terms, I made sure I discussed those. And then we did guided practice, where we led a discussion about the article, and then they worked in groups of 4 to answer the questions that were presented to them, and then they used the internet, use the internet to research a type of bacteria. And then they use the table that I attached down here to write down their type of bacteria, their information, and then in their groups to share that information. So that was kind of fun. So we can change it. There's all types of different bacterias. And then to check for the understanding, we moved to a different group. So students moved to a different group, but they couldn't have any members from the previous group. That way they're getting new information, new ideas. And then they did independent practice, and by watching the video independently. Watching this video talks about the different bacteria and everything, but then they can go through afterwards and use a blank piece of paper and create a small poster that talks about the bacteria that they've learned. They can choose one of many because they have that table, and they've got lots of information, so they have lots of information to put on this poster. And the cool thing is I can then take those posters and post them from my class. When we do a unit review, all this information is right there for them. It's a great review. So I was very excited about that lesson. And then this one I think was the bacterial fermentation in yogurt production. Again, students will be able to describe the bacteria involved in yogurt production, create a growth curve, and identify the products and reactants of lactic acid fermentation. This one was a little more difficult because it does require like some math and some science and some real attention absorbing activities. So it was more difficult, but it was necessary in order to get the information to move on in the unit. But each of my lessons have where we review the previous information the previous day, so if students are absent, they catch up. I want them to still continue to access the knowledge that they've got from the other class and from their private lives and information they've gotten in the world. Discuss what they know. I want them to get in groups and discuss what they know. Then they're going to be observing things, recording the information, so they're learning skills. Even though they're just observing yogurt, it's still learning the process of observing. We watched some more videos because short videos, I think, is a great way to reiterate what you're trying to tell them. Because after a while, you start sounding like the Charlie Brown teacher where you're just wah, 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 wah. Nobody wants to hear that. So we did that. We did some more internet research because throwing kids on the internet, giving them that technology to use is great. Because honestly, that's where I learned a lot of the new things, a lot of new techniques, a lot of new information that I didn't have. So I think it's fun. So in the second lesson, we have another warm-up. This one, they are going to be talking about the bacteria. Then they're going to be, this is the part here, the guided practice, where it's really just language heavy, unfortunately. I think for this, looking back on it, I think I'd like to actually go ahead and create a framework for my EL students. So that they can actually have notes that are there, that are mostly there, where they can add things to them, but it's not going to require them to add a whole lot in order to get the idea, because they're already struggling. And then to throw some Latin terms like Lactobacillus bulgaricus, Streptococcus thermophiles, that's a huge thing. So I think maybe giving them the framework, the note framework, will help the process. And that can be something they can put in those scientific journals that I was talking about. And it's neat because we even talk about lactose intolerance in this lesson. I have tables, and I would have this table up on the board. We talked about a couple different videos that we watched. Then they work in their groups. And I did this a little bit differently. Usually the class is always talking about the same thing, but I wanted to have them split up. So we have 3 different groups covering 3 different topics. That way everybody's got something different. You can't listen in another group and see what they're doing. I made sure that they also had this due at the end of class. In order to check for the understandings, we would review the new terms, new vocabulary. That way, even though they had been learning from each other, it's still covered by me to make sure they've got the right information. And then we will go ahead and talk about these questions. And these questions right here really relate right back to the, back up down here, the objective, so that they understand. And I can check to make sure that they understand and they've gotten these ideas from our practice, from the research that they've done. And that's the important part, I think. And I think I'm about to run out of time, so maybe I'll make another video. Thanks.